Hey guys, and it was a pretty competitive and awesome fight that saw Billy Joe Saunders kind of retire on the stool. We're going to be taking a look at some highlights and be talking about some defense and some tactics and stuff. But let's take a look at the highlights. So the round started off with Billy Joe Saunders doing really well, controlling the space really well. So well that he was able to interrupt Canelo getting into his pendulum, boom, and then counter him. Okay, now when I say interrupt his pendulum, Canelo's looking to get to this front foot here with this jab, and he's looking to shuffle his feet here with that big jump right there so he can land this big right hand, okay? This is going to be a very, very common thing that he's looking to do in this fight. Canelo's kind of a one-punch striker. He likes to really explode. One, bop, get that big jump, boom, okay? So that's kind of what he's looking to do, and as long as Billy Joe Saunders was controlling him and holding him and using that lead hand control, right? Using his jab, attacking him, controlling him, using the right hand to control him, right? He was able to keep Canelo at a rhythm in which he could control and he could stop Canelo from being able to land big punches. Now, here he is, Billy Joe Saunders doing an excellent job controlling him, changing positions, front foot, back foot. Now, this right here, this is a big no-no, okay, guys? This is a big no-no. He's pivoting on the front foot, okay? His head is on the front foot right here. That means he's going to be exposed for a long time on the front foot. That's very, very bad. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But one thing I want to point out when we're watching these clips, watch all of Canelo's defensive movements. They all go towards his back foot, whereas most of Billy Joe Saunders wind up pushing him towards his front foot. As you see, he uses that pendulum step there that Canelo used a second ago, but he does it in a very controlled manner, right after a boom, 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 right after a right hand, right into his next punch, a seamless, fluid motion, some beautiful boxing right there, but he gets a little carried away. Okay, now again, a little bit extra good defense here, getting feinted by Canelo, moving off the line, and then beautiful counter punch to the body. Just excellent, excellent work from Billy Joe here. And then it kind of falls apart a little bit. Billy Joe's going to use that leaping pendulum left hook, and this is the same one he'd been using. This is the same one that Canelo used in the opening scene there, and this is where he really gets hit. And he gets hit in the eye here, okay? I think this is the punch that does it. It catches him right here on the inside. As you see, Billy Joe ducks down here, and he brings his head back to the back foot as he's penduluming, and he gets caught in the middle. Now, when you teach this, you want to be showing people how to feint and probe to set the position up. But we can see here, Billy Joe Saunders doesn't really set the position up. When he crouches down here, he doesn't really feint. He doesn't really set it up. He doesn't give Canelo anything to look at when he gets into this position. So Canelo knows what are all the things Billy Joe Saunders can do here. Well, he can throw a jab. He can throw a cross. He can do a pendulum. What has he been doing? Well, let's see what he does. Long pendulum. And Canelo comes back with this, a very simple counter uppercut, and I think that that's the punch that really hurts Billy Joe Saunders' eye. Again, we're going to take a look real quick at this clip here, and I want you to look at Billy Joe Saunders' eye, 142, okay? You can't really see it, right? But there's nothing there, right? Now we're going to take a look over here. Boom. Right after that shot, real quick, Canelo again getting into that pendulum, right? Boom, 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 right? Getting all that weight to that front foot, just like Billy Joe Saunders did a second ago. And then he got clipped. Remember when he got clipped? That was very similar to how Billy Joe Saunders clipped him in the first scene, right? Over here in the middle of that pendulum, boom, boom, and then bop, catches him in the middle of it, right? But Canelo landed a much, much bigger punch. And now that all that space that he's gained by landing that shot, he's able to use, because now all of a sudden Billy Joe Saunders is not controlling the space. So he's going to be eating these big punches, allowing Canelo. Now here's where we see Billy Joe Saunders. He's coming forward. Look at his eye right now. Billy Joe Saunders' eye. He's gonna wince right here. Look at his eyes. Boom, wincing. And now this is just 30 seconds after, okay? This is the first time you get to see his eye after eating that big shot, and his eye is just swollen and gross and purple. And we're going to see Canelo here, again, looking at meeting Canelo on the line and getting into his pendulum, boom, landing an excellent body shot. And again, pendulum, right? Canelo is not able, or Billy Joe Saunders is not able to stop Canelo from getting into this pendulum and jumping into that punch and landing a really, really big shot. If you guys are interested in learning how to fight like this, you guys check out my Vimeo packages below. I have a boxing seminar that I give to all my black belt boxers that I teach pendulum boxing to. It's an excellent course. Check out the reviews. Has some heavy bag drills for you to really maximize and learn how to use these pendulum punches on the heavy bag for greatest effect. But it's pendulum boxing. It's really cool. Anyway, getting back to the film study. Again, without any way to control Canelo, Canelo's just coming in and throwing these big pendulum shots, these big exaggerated punches. And Canelo's able to layer his attacks with all this extra power, make these punches take all that extra time, right? And be wide and be exaggerated because Billy Joe Saunders doesn't really have a way to interact with Canelo right now. He's not controlling the space. He's not feinting or probing. He's not able to stop Canelo from being this wild and exaggerated, from being this explosive, right? He's not able to interact with him in a way that prevents that. Now, this is the problem with one of the defenses that Billy Joe Saunders has, right? So he gets on the front foot, and notice his defense here is to pull back, but where is he bringing his weight, right? He shoots his jab here, boom. Now, his next defensive motion would bring his weight this way, right? But after making an attack, instead of using a defensively responsible motion, he starts to pivot on that foot first, and then that causes him to sit on the line. Again, this is a problem if you watch the fight, and if you guys want to check out the whole fight, I'm going to be doing a film study of it tonight on Patreon, full fight film study. You can check it out. It's $10 to sign up, $10 a month, and we're going to be doing some workout drills occasionally. And if you guys have fight requests and stuff and all that jazz, you can ask for those, and there's a lot of videos already up there. But yeah, anyway, just something that I noticed and I wanted to talk about because Canelo, again, didn't really have that problem with his defense. Now, this again, Billy Joe Saunders, I want you to pay attention to Billy Joe Saunders being on that front foot, right? Where is he bringing his weight? It's obvious that he's leaving, right? That he's not trying to engage with Canelo here, but he's not bringing his weight away from Canelo, right? Now, I want to point out real quick, there's another idea here that's very important, okay? For all of you guys that stayed this long. Canelo doesn't move to his left, okay? A lot of people think that you're circling to your left, you're doing this. That's what Billy Joe Saunders is trying to do here. But Canelo's actually just moving to his right, okay? It's a very slight this direction right, but if we pay attention to this sequence here, Canelo's not, even when he's chasing him down, he's not moving to his left, right? Stepping forward, he'll pivot, but he's not stepping to his left. He's only stepping to his right. And Billy Joe Saunders is stepping to his right, but he's a southpaw, so he wants to be stepping the other direction, right? Because when Canelo shoots a shot here, boom, when he takes a step, instead of dragging his leg out this way and keeping his head in this position, he can just take a step and his head will follow his weight, okay? There doesn't have to be the extra position, the extra time. So if he gets attacked after throwing that big shot, he can just bring his weight right back to his feet. Whereas Billy Joe Saunders being in these positions, he's not bringing his weight to the back foot here. He's trying to get it to the front foot. And here you see him trying to do that and Canelo timing him in the middle of that. And again, we know that Billy Joe Saunders is not trying to be aggressive. So when he goes from the back foot to the front foot here, when you cross your opponent's line, this is a very aggressive and dominant act. Okay? It's very difficult to do. And this is, anyway, Canelo recognizes that he's controlling or that he's crossing his line here. Canelo recognizes that there's an opportunity to get some free power. As Billy Joe Saunders goes here, Canelo's going to throw a punch to meet him, right? And Canelo throwing it up, feinting him, and getting Billy Joe Saunders to kind of roll into this punch. Actually, really well set up. A beautiful fight from Canelo. He fought just as expected. I think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to get a little more credit in the fight than he deserves because I do think he fought well, and he fought an excellent 8th round up until he got clipped with that huge pendulum mistake. Again, if you guys want to learn pendulum boxing, check it out, or you can join my Patreon for some personalized coaching. All this film study that I'm doing here on Canelo, I can do for you guys as well, for your own personal fights and such. But again, until he made this massive mistake, he really wasn't in a lot of trouble. He really wasn't He was really doing well in a lot of spots, but I suspect one of the reasons that Canelo or that Billy Joe Saunders was doing well or starting to do better in the middle of the fight is because Canelo was tiring. Canelo had some really explosive early rounds, throwing some really, really big shots, and Canelo's not actually as good as he should be at pendulum boxing and chaining his weight transitions together. He gets good, decent power, but he could do much better. But he uses a lot of energy to do it, and I think it slowed him down enough to really show Billy Saunders that he was in the fight, okay? And I think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to be a little more disappointed in the fight, that he didn't, in the early rounds, he didn't kind of man up and trade. I don't want to say trade with Canelo, because you don't want to trade and take punches, but when he didn't eat those body shots and counter, okay? Canelo was doing a lot of that pendulum boxing, a lot of this kind of motion here that in the middle rounds, Billy Joe Saunders was able to capitalize and counter and even interrupt, right? But it was a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy for Canelo because of his rhythm to get into this rhythm and this pendulum. And I think Canelo kind of slowed because he used a lot of energy, throwing a lot of punches, but it was enough to kind of scare Billy Joe Saunders into giving away a few more rounds than he should have. And then Billy Joe Saunders kind of realized he was into the fight a little bit too late. You know, he didn't have enough work. He didn't have enough, well, you know, he should have done some more sit-ups, you know? Anyway, yeah, it was a great fight regardless. Billy Joe Saunders should be proud of his work, proud of what he's accomplished in boxing up until this point. And then, you know, I don't know, take a look at the drawing board and, you know, get some new trainers, because he shouldn't be gassing in a fight like this early, especially against a guy he was so much bigger than.